And today on the show, we are joined by not one, but two members of a RadioU Throwback band making a comeback. We got double trouble today. We've got Jeremy and Scott from the Myriad on the show. Good morning, guys.
Hey, good morning.
You guys have been going together for a band for a while. A lot of your music that you made back in the day, now that you're reuniting, the stuff you made back in the day is newly on streaming, right? Am I getting that right?
Yeah, so we just came out with a new song called Signs, and it's the first song we've released since 2008. The last album we did was With Arrows, With Poise, and we took a long hiatus. And so we have a brand new song that came out last Friday.
Nice. So I want to hear more about Signs. I also just want to know more about why was now the time that you guys, after so many years, were able to get back together?
You know, it's I guess the long and the short of it is after we released With Arrows, With Poise, we were touring. It was kind of a big year for us, 2008, 2009. And then our drummer, while we were on tour, we realized that he had bone cancer. And so we took a long break for him to get treatment. He fought really hard. And unfortunately, Randy, our drummer, passed away in 2010. At that point, Scott had left the band and Randy had taken over for Scott in, I want to say, maybe 2006 or 7. And so when Randy died, it kind of took the wind out of my sails. I kind of went into like a dark cave for a while. And then Scott and I have been hanging out recently. We actually went and saw a concert together, and on the drive home, Scott said, "Man, we should release something." And I said, "Well, I do have a song I wrote that would be fun to do." And Scott's like, "Let's do it." So we just got to work the next day.
Yeah,
Nice.
that's an amazing story.
Yeah.
So now that you guys have obviously released Signs, what is to come for you? Is there more music on the way? Do you guys have plans, or is it kind of just in the moment of what's going on right now?
You know, when we release Signs, like I think for me, I just, Scott, he's been a big encouragement for me with this song and possibly more to come. I keep telling Scott, slow down, buddy. And but we had Scott's like, let's release an album. I'm like, okay, let's do this song first. Let's see how it goes. But I had so much fun doing this song, and even last night I was at the studio writing, and so I think there could be some more to come.
Yes, that's what we like to hear, especially after hearing Signs. Now, you mentioned that Signs, it's the new song that's out now. We're going to play it here in just a moment. And the story of Signs ties into Randy, your drummer, passing away. Is that right?
Yeah. So when Randy was in hospice, after fighting really hard for a couple of years, I had some conversations with him that I never thought I would have with a best friend. He was ready, and he was ready to go, and he in the most healthy way I think you could possibly be. He of course didn't want to go, but we had conversations about heaven and God and the mystery and what that's going to look like. And Randy told me, he said, "Hey man, if there's a way that I can communicate with you from the other side, I will." And it's kind of a weird conversation to have with somebody, but he knows that I'm a dreamer, and I like to write songs about these kind of things, just the mystery of God, the things that we don't know, the things that are going to blow our mind. And so he told me that, and then he also said, keep writing. He asked why I hadn't written for a while, and I said, man, it just took the wind out of my sails when I found out you got cancer. And he's like, well, maybe someday you'll write a song about this. And so years later, I told my assistant, Andrew Jackson, hey, I think I'm ready to write again. And Andrew knew Randy. Andrew knew what that meant for me. He knew about those conversations with Randy. So we ended up writing this song together. And at the last minute, a doctor friend of mine, I showed him the song. I hadn't written the bridge yet. And then the next day he called and said, hey, that song you showed me, I know you haven't written the bridge yet. I wrote the bridge last night. Is that weird? And I was like, it's only weird. It's only weird if it sucks. Let's check it out. So we got together at my studio, and he showed it to me, and the lyrics were beautiful, and I wrote a melody to it. And then a month after that, the three of us, well, it was Andrew and I were going to produce a record in London, and strangely, this doctor friend that joined in on the song, he said, he called me the night before and he said, I'm coming with you and Andrew to London. And I said, what? We're going to make a record for a week. And he goes, I know, I'm coming with you. I just booked a ticket. And I said, well, why would you do that? And he said, I feel like God wants me to go on this trip with you and Andrew. I believe that something very holy is going to happen. And so when I picked up Dr. John and then I picked up Andrew, and we're driving to Sacramento for a couple hours, and he's telling us that he just the night before, he just felt like he's supposed to get online and book a ticket and come with us, and that something would happen that would change our lives forever. And again, like, I love the mystery, and for me, I didn't brush it off. I was like, what's it going to be and when? And Andrew was right there with us, engaged in what is this holy, and so that day was very strange. I mean, we had these lots of conversations about God, and even Andrew at some point said, hey, he had been my assistant in recording in my studio for about 10 years. I brought him on the team when he was 19, and at this point he was 29. And at some point on the trip, he said, hey, when I'm gone, I've been praying for the last couple of weeks that God would bring you somebody that, serves you the way I have. And I'm like, are you quitting? And he's like, no, I'm not quitting. And I was like, well, why would you say that? And he's like, I don't know. It's just been something on my heart. Nothing lasts forever. And certainly he wasn't referring to dying or anything like that, but it was a strange day with conversations like that. And then while we were in flight to London, Andrew began having some chest pains, and the doctor that came with us on the flight happened to be the only doctor on the plane. So he informed the pilot that Andrew was having a heart attack, and Andrew didn't know. He kept that from Andrew and just said privately, if you can land very quickly. So the pilot landed at Heathrow an hour early. When the plane landed, there was a whole bunch of EMTs waiting, and John got Andrew into a wheelchair, and they wouldn't let me get out of my seat until Andrew. I wanted to follow them, and after they passed me, the flight attendant said, you can go with them. So I stood up and followed John and Andrew down the aisle, and right when they got to the door, Andrew looked at me and he gave me a peace sign. And the last thing Randy told me was, if there's a way I can communicate with you, I will. Look for a sign. And I said, what kind of a sign? He said, just keep your eyes open. And Andrew looked at me and he gave me a peace sign. And then right after that, he went into cardiac arrest. And when he went into cardiac arrest, he was surrounded by a whole team of EMTs immediately at that time. It was very strange. They had every life-saving piece of equipment that you need in these kind of medical emergencies: adrenaline, oxygen. They were able to keep his heart going manually. They took him to a world-class surgeon in London who does like heart transplants and write books about heart transplants, like pretty much the finest place in Europe that you could go. if you're having a heart attack, and he didn't make it, and it was the strangest thing, because it was heart crushing and heart wrenching, and the mourning for me continued for years and still goes to this day.
Mm-hmm.
But it was interesting. Andrew's mom flew in, and the first thing she said to me after we hugged and cried together, she said, "I want to be mad at somebody. I want to say, why wasn't there a doctor on the plane? Why didn't they have equipment to tell he was having a heart attack? Why wasn't there medical staff that had the tools they needed?" And she said, "But I can't be mad at anybody, because everything was right for Andrew to be saved, but it was his time." And some of those things that I talked with Andrew about, or with Randy, those things about being ready, and him experiencing God, and the mystery and all those things. Like, when Randy died, I didn't feel that. I just felt angry. I was really pissed. He had 2 young kids, and it took me a long time to get over that. But when Andrew went, it didn't take away the sting. It didn't take away the mourning, but there was something I could recognize as holy, the holiness of being with a friend as he sees Jesus for the first time, as he crosses over into that mystery that awaits us, and as and again, it can never take away the hurt or the sting, but I experienced it differently, having been there with Andrew on that flight.
Wow. That's unbelievable. We appreciate you, I guess, pouring all of that out into the new music, because we're really loving Signs. So now having that story in mind makes you listen to Signs a little differently. We'll play that here next. Check out the Myriad. They've got all their old stuff is now new again on streaming as well. So check that out. Jeremy and Scott, thank you both so much for joining us this morning.
You got it.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
All right. It